A second before the bell for the IPO, my partner, my supposed brother, urgently pushed a stock transfer agreement at me. Sign this, and we'll be the richest men alive. In front of all the media, I tore the agreement to shreds. In my past life, I had signed without hesitation, handing over complete control of the company to him and my fiancée. I thought we were the perfect triumvirate, about to reach the peak of our lives. But they poisoned the champagne I was celebrating with, seized everything in my name, and staged my death as a tragic fall from a building. He was too naive. Did he really think we'd share the money with him? Darling, the company and all our billions are ours now. As my soul left my body during the 100-foot drop, I saw them kissing over my corpse. When I opened my eyes again, I was back at the bell-ringing ceremony. He was handing me that gold Parker pen, his smile dazzling. Adam, hurry up and sign. It's a historic moment. I stared into David's eyes. The same greed and urgency I remembered were churning inside them. He hadn't even fully concealed it. I looked down again to the front row center, where my fiancée, Sarah, was watching me with eager eyes, her hands nervously clasped, mouthing words of encouragement. What a touching scene. If I hadn't been reborn, I would have believed this was the happiest peak of my life. But now all I felt was a bone-chilling cold that shot up from my tailbone to the crown of my head. Every flicker of anticipation on their faces was a nail hammered into my soul. The camera flashes exploded in front of my eyes, almost blinding me. Global media, top investors, everyone was witnessing the glorious moment for Singularity Tech. They were witnessing me, founder Ethan Stone, about to be shoved into the abyss by the brother I trusted most and the woman I loved most. David saw I was hesitating and urged me again. Adam, what are you spacing out for? It's a multi-billion-dollar deal. Sign it. He shoved the pen into my hand again, with enough force to nearly crush my knuckles. I took the pen, and I took that thin stock transfer agreement that held all the wealth and humiliation of my previous life. David's smile widened. Sarah in the crowd also let out a sigh of relief, revealing a sweet, victorious smile. Everyone expected me to sign my name. The next second, rear rip, a crisp sound echoed, strangely clear in the roaring venue. In front of all the cameras, I tore that agreement in half, right down the middle. The entire place fell silent. Even the camera flashes seemed to freeze for an instant. The smile on David's face cracked inch by inch, finally solidifying into a look of ridiculous horror. Adam, you... Sarah below the stage gasped, her surprise instantly turning to shock. She instinctively stood up, her mouth slightly open, having forgotten to close it. I ignored him and kept tearing. Halves, quarters, eighths, until the agreement was nothing but shredded paper, which I casually tossed into the air. The flakes drifted down like snow, some even sticking to David's rigid face. I picked up the microphone in front of him, brought it to my lips, and blew across it. Hello. My voice was calm, but through the venue's top-tier sound system, it clearly reached everyone's ears. Thank you to all the media friends. Thank you to all our guests. But today, I have some new ideas regarding the company's future. I paused, my gaze slowly sweeping across the audience, finally settling on David and Sarah, who was now rushing onto the stage. I need to have a serious talk with my CEO and my fiancée. I deliberately emphasized the words CEO and fiancée. David's face had turned from shock to ashen gray. He frantically tried to snatch the microphone. Adam is just too excited. He's too excited. Everyone, don't misunderstand. I sidestepped, letting him grab empty air. I'm very calm. I looked him in the eye, speaking word by word. For example, regarding the backup security of Singularity Tech's core code repository, I think it's extremely necessary to reevaluate it. That sentence hit David and Sarah like a lightning bolt from a clear sky. It was a warning only the three of us understood. That was the company's lifeblood and my biggest trump card, which in my past life, I had handed over to them without reservation. David's pupils contracted violently. Sarah rushed to my side, reaching out to grab my arm, her face instantly filling with tears, looking on the verge of weeping. Adam, don't be like this. Can we talk when we get home? You're scaring me. What great acting. In my past life, I was completely fooled by that innocent and pitiful look. I recoiled violently, taking a step back as if avoiding a plague, dodging her touch. I made no effort to hide the disgust I felt right in front of the global media. Sarah's hand froze awkwardly in midair, her complexion shifting from red to white. Don't touch me. I looked at her, my voice not loud, but every word was a killing blow. You disgust me. The audience immediately erupted in an uproar. The reporters went wild, the shutter clicks sounding like continuous fire. Questions rained down on us like artillery shells. Mr. Stone, does tearing up the agreement mean your partnership with Mr. Lee is dissolved? Mr. Stone, is the code security issue you mentioned a risk of internal company leaks? Ms. Lee, Mr. Stone said you discussed him. Has your engagement changed? I answered none of the questions. I leaned into the microphone and made my final announcement. Today's bell-ringing ceremony is suspended. With that, under the escort of security guards, amidst a siege of reporters and David's livid, contorted face, I walked straight off stage. I left behind an exploded public opinion bomb and a multi-billion-dollar empire on the verge of collapse. David, Sarah, what you owe me for my last life, the game starts now. I want to see how you two can prop up this false commercial myth without my technology, without my backing. I returned to the exclusive backstage lounge and deadbolt the door. My phone vibrated like a detonated bomb, the screen flashing between David Lee and Sarah Lee. Countless calls, countless texts bombarded me. I just watched them silently, then pressed the power off button. The world became quiet. I walked to the massive floor-to-ceiling window where I could see the live feed on the Jumbotron in the plaza below. On the screen, the financial news anchor was reporting the breaking news with unprecedented excitement. Explosive news. At the Singularity Tech IPO bell-ringing ceremony, founder Ethan Stone publicly tore up the equity agreement and hinted at a major internal conflict, leading to the emergency suspension of the ceremony. Affected by this, Singularity Tech's pre-market stock price instantly plunged, falling over 30%. Market speculation suggests Singularity Tech may already be disintegrating internally, casting a huge shadow over its IPO prospects. Watching the sharp green line plummet on the screen, I felt no elation, only a cold, desolate emptiness. This was supposed to be my glory. Now, I had smashed it myself. No destruction, no construction. I turned on another backup phone and logged into an encrypted email account. Inside, I found something I had prepared long ago. It was an anonymous tip I had prepared in my past life, which David had ordered his subordinate to fabricate to eliminate dissent and suppress another core technical lead in the company. The tip alleged that the lead engineer had a chaotic personal life and accepted kickbacks. At the time, David showed it to me, and I naively advised him not to use such tactics. Now this dirt was the first knife in my hand. I made slight modifications to the document, omitting specific names, but skillfully aimed the spearhead at the senior management, especially the CEO's machinations and controlling nature. Exposed. Unicorn CEO resorts to unscrupulous means to consolidate power. Core technical team fears being sidelined. I anonymously sent this document, along with the sensational headline, to several financial news outlets known for their in-depth and sharp reporting. After finishing, I poured myself a glass of water. The phone screen lit up with a text message. It was from Sarah. Adam, I don't know what's gotten into you today. Did you hear some gossip? We've been together for 3 years, from having nothing to where we are today. How could I ever hurt you? Have you forgotten the days we ate instant ramen and squeezed into that tiny apartment writing code? I love you, Adam. No matter what happens, I'm on your side. Please, can you just call me back? I'm so scared. It was so moving and tear-jerking. In my past life, seeing a text like this would have melted my heart. Now, every word felt like a writhing maggot, making me sick. My fingers flew across the screen, and I replied with just 2 words. Disgusting. Sent, then blocked. Immediately after, a threatening text from David arrived. Ethan Stone, are you out of your damn mind? Do you want to destroy everything we built? Get back here right now and explain yourself to the media. I looked at the word we and found it utterly ironic. I shot back a reply. Is it we? Then I blocked him too. On TV, the bait I had cast was already starting to ferment. This station has received an anonymous tip that conflict has long existed between Singularity Tech's management and technical teams, with CEO David Lee accused of an overbearing management style and sidelining dissent. The tide of public opinion began to shift from founder infighting to a crisis of the CEO's character and management competence. Good. This is exactly what I wanted. David, don't you pride yourself most on your reputation, on building your persona as the approachable leader? I'll start by peeling off that hypocritical skin of yours, layer by layer. I dialed a long-forgotten number. The phone rang for a long time before being answered. Hello. A slightly hoarse and tired voice came through the line. Ben Carter, my senior from college, once the undisputed technical genius at Singularity Tech, second only to me. A year ago, David drove him out using baseless accusations. At the time, I was completely hoodwinked, thinking Ben had actually made a mistake. Ben, it's me, Ethan. Silence on the other end. I could imagine his complex feelings right now. I know you don't want to hear from me, but give me 1 minute. I spoke rapidly. Someone wants to steal our house and then bury us, the people who built the house, alive. Right now, I'm preparing to rip up the very foundation of this house, one beam at a time. Interested in coming back to play with us? Ben was silent for a full 3 seconds. Where are you? The Ritz-Carlton across from the company, the presidential suite. Wait for me, I'm on my way. The call ended. I knew the first member of my Avengers was in place. Meanwhile, David and Sarah were probably in a frantic emergency PR meeting at the company. They wouldn't guess that the real storm was just beginning. Ben arrived at the hotel dusty and looking exhausted, with dark circles under his eyes. But his eyes, the eyes of a top-tier hacker, were startlingly bright. I knew that kid, David, wasn't good news. He strode in and slammed his fist onto the table. I handed him a bottle of water and gestured for him to sit down. Talking about that now is useless. I need your help. I didn't mention rebirth. Instead, I laid out everything David had done to sideline me and siphon off assets, along with his and Sarah's conspiracy as my theories and investigative findings. With every detail I shared, Ben's expression darkened. When I mentioned the plan to poison my celebration champagne, the plastic water bottle in Ben's hand squeaked as he crushed it. Animals. They really are animals. He stood up abruptly, pacing back and forth, his chest heaving. Ethan, what do you want to do? Tell me. I'll follow you through fire and water. Not so fast. I held him down. To kill a man's spirit, revenge must be step by step. I opened my laptop and pulled up the company's shareholder structure chart. To pull off this IPO, David convinced all the early investors and even mortgaged all his personal assets, borrowing bridge loans from a VC with triple leverage, absorbing a significant portion of the shares. If the IPO fails or the stock plummets, he'll be the first to go bankrupt. Ben looked at the chart and understood what I meant. You want to start with the shareholders? Exactly. I pointed to a name on the chart, Mr. Wong, Richard Wong. Richard Wong was the second largest shareholder, an early investor, and a shrewd old fox who wouldn't move unless there was a guaranteed profit. He had been blinded by David's blueprint of a 100-fold return after the IPO and had firmly stood with David. I had to win him over. I called Richard Wong. Mr. Wong, this is Ethan Stone. Interested in discussing the future of singularity tech? A future without bubbles. On the other end, Richard Wong was silent for a moment, his voice laced with suspicion. Mr. Stone, the show you put on today didn't go over so well. Whether it went well or not, you'll know when we meet. Half an hour at the Serenity Tea House. I'll be waiting. I hung up immediately. I knew he would come because the phrase "a future without bubbles" had struck at his deepest fear. Ben and I immediately split up. I pulled an all-nighter creating a tribute document that would entice Richard Wong, while Ben began combing through the company network, looking for David's hidden tracks. Half an hour later, I met Richard Wong in a private room at the Serenity Tea House. His expression was grim. Clearly, he had come to demand an explanation. Ethan Stone, what the hell are you trying to do? Do you know how much market capitalization you vaporized today? I skipped the pleasantries and pushed a file in front of him. Mr. Wong, read this first, then you can get angry. Richard Wong picked up the file with suspicion, but after just one glance, his eyes lit up. Is this the core architecture diagram for Singularity OS 0? Singularity OS 0 was the strategic, long-term project I had been leading. In my past life, after I died, the project immediately stalled and was ultimately abandoned. I guess I was too excited last night to sleep, so I drew it up overnight. I smiled faintly and refilled his tea. Mr. Lee is only thinking about cashing out in the IPO. He doesn't understand technology, and he certainly doesn't understand where the future of singularity tech lies. The 100-fold return he promised you is a bubble. What I'm giving you is substance. Richard Wong's breathing became slightly rapid. Then, I produced a second document, a copy of a transfer record. This is something I found by accident, a $30 million R&D fund that flowed through an overseas supplier into a shell corporation registered in the Cayman Islands. Coincidentally, the holder of that company is named Lee. This was a clue I stumbled upon just before I died in my past life. I had intended to ask David about it, but never got the chance. Richard Wong's face instantly turned ugly. He was a smart man. He pieced everything together in an instant. Mr. Wong, do you want to follow a captain who's planning to empty the ship and run, watching the boat sink? Or do you want to switch helmsmen together and build a real aircraft carrier to sail into the broader blue ocean? My voice was soft, but every word was like a hammer blow to his conscience. Richard Wong stared hard at me, fine beads of sweat forming on his forehead. He struggled for a long time. Why should I trust you? David is still the CEO, and the board is on his side. Not for long. I revealed my terms. I need your support in the board meeting. In return, I'll personally give you 10% of the net profits from Project 2. 0. Richard Wong shot his head up, his eyes wide with shock. This was far more than his shareholder dividends. This was a temptation he absolutely could not refuse. Deal. Mr. Wong slammed his palm on the table on the spot, shaking the teacups. Mr. Stone, from now on, I only recognize you as the head of this company. He stood up and extended his hand to me. Starting now, I am your sword in the boardroom. The moment we shook hands, I knew I had torn a massive breach in David's shareholder faction. At the same time, my backup phone vibrated. It was a message from Ben. Sarah is downstairs at your apartment building, throwing a fit and demanding to see you. Security is holding her back, and she's currently sitting on the floor crying. I walked to the tea house window and glanced in the direction of my apartment. Although I couldn't see clearly, I could picture her tear-streaked, pitiful appearance. In my past life, I lost my life for that very look. I drew the curtain closed. Only cold indifference remained in my eyes. David, Sarah, you're still trying to suppress the media and use your connections to find me. But you don't know that your fortress is already crumbling from within. Cry, make a scene. This is just the beginning. Soon, you won't even have the strength to cry. Wong's sudden change in attitude made David sense a dangerous tremor. He couldn't reach me, and the public opinion was turning increasingly against him. This greedy and vicious man finally decided to strike first. He activated a plan deeply familiar to me. The backup plan that, in my past life, he had originally intended to use to nail me to the pillar of shame after I signed the agreement and lost all my power, framing me for stealing the company's core code and preparing to sell it to a competitor. Ben, through an inside contact he had planted in the company, passed the news to me immediately. David has secretly instructed the legal department to draft a lawsuit against you, accusing you of stealing trade secrets. He also told Sarah to use her connections to contact a few paparazzi to fabricate photos of you having a secret meeting with the CTO of Synopsis Corp, a competitor. The worst part is, he hired a hacker to break into your personal computer and plant a fake transaction contract. Listening to Ben's anxious voice, I actually laughed. Don't rush. Let him do it. What? Ben was stunned. Let him do it? Then aren't we? Don't you know what inviting the wolf into the house means? I hung up the phone, staring at a flashing red dot on my computer screen, the curve of my lips growing colder. David, you think you're on the 5th floor, but I've been waiting for you in the stratosphere. I deliberately let Ben accidentally leak to the inside contact that I've been in a bad mood lately and frequently visit a bar called the Night Owl. Furthermore, I unintentionally let slip that I was a college alumnus of the Synopsis Corp CTO. The bait was cast. Now we wait for the fish to bite. David, as expected, did not disappoint me. The next day, a bombshell exploded online. Several cleverly angled paparazzi photos showed me in a bar booth secretly meeting with a blurred man with a document on the table. The accompanying text was startling. Shocking reversal. Singularity Tech founder Ethan Stone suspected of defection. Secretly meeting competitor, selling core secrets. Sarah immediately posted a heartbroken statement on her personal X, formerly Twitter, account. I can't believe this is real. Adam, why would you do something like this? No matter how much you were unhappy with me, you couldn't betray the dream we built together. She tearfully exposed me, claiming that because I was dissatisfied with the equity distribution, I had long harbored rebellious thoughts, and it was only after her earnest persuasion failed that I strayed onto the wrong path. In an instant, public opinion completely reversed. I went from being a victim suppressed by the CEO to a treacherous traitor. Countless curses and condemnations flooded toward me. David seized the opportunity, immediately announcing an emergency board meeting. The agenda had only one item: to remove Ethan Stone from all positions at Singularity Tech and initiate legal proceedings to pursue criminal charges against me. He thought the evidence was conclusive, and victory was his. At the board meeting, David was triumphant, slamming printed copies of the photos and a transaction contract he had forged and stolen from my computer onto the table. Gentlemen, the facts are before you. Ethan Stone, this man for the sake of money, has sold all of us out. Mr. Wong, following my instructions, pretended to agree, his face etched with feigned grief. I never expected this, truly never expected Adam to be this kind of person. This further fueled David's arrogance. Then, it was time for his best actress to make her entrance. Sarah attended as a key witness, weeping piteously, as if she had suffered an immense injustice. I noticed something was wrong with him a long time ago. He used to take secret calls late at night, and he even said He even said David didn't deserve to be CEO, that he was going to take the company back, even if he had to destroy it. I tried to reason with him. I begged him, but he wouldn't listen to me. She looked at me with eyes full of grief and disappointment. What masterful acting. I recalled how in my past life, when I lay on the cold ground and my soul left my body, she was crying just like this, dramatically throwing herself into David's arms to celebrate their victory. All the directors fell silent, looking at me with contempt and anger. David stood up, a triumphant smirk he couldn't suppress on his face. Gentlemen, there is nothing left to discuss. Now, I move to a vote to strip Ethan Stone of his CTO title, his board seat, and all his access privileges. He scanned the room, already envisioning his future reign. Just as he called for the vote to begin, I finally spoke. Hold on. I slowly stood up and walked to the main control console at the front of the conference room. Before we vote, I'd like to invite all directors to watch a more interesting performance. I plug a USB drive into the computer. The main screen in the conference room instantly lit up. What appeared wasn't a document, but a screen recording video. In the video, a hacker skillfully bypassed the firewall and planted a Trojan horse program on my personal computer. Then, the hacker remotely created an encrypted file named Transaction Contract with Synopsis Corp. The video clearly recorded all the hacker's operational traces, the IP address, and the chat log with his employer. The employer's avatar was none other than David Lee. Are you done? Did you plant the stuff? Don't worry, Mr. Lee, it's seamless. David's smile froze instantly. His eyes widened like copper bells, staring fixedly at the screen, his whole body trembling. But that wasn't all. I pressed play on the next video. On the screen appeared a WeChat chat record between Sarah and another man. The man is Lee. The photo is photoshopped. Does this angle work for you? Sarah: yes, very realistic. The final payment has been transferred to you. Below, it was a clear bank transfer voucher. If the first video struck David like a thunderbolt, the second video made Sarah's soul fly out of her body. She let out a sharp scream, her entire body collapsing on her chair, her face ashen. The entire conference room was dead silent. Every director looked at David and Sarah with the gaze reserved for monsters. I walked up to them, picked up the forged contract, and waved it in front of their faces. Then, I smiled and looked at the two people whose faces were ashen. Mr. Lee, Director Lee, do you have anything else to add? The board meeting devolved into a farce. David and Sarah went from plaintiffs to defendants, from judges to the subjects of a major scandal. Their expressions were more colorful than a paint palette. David tried to argue, claiming the videos were fake and that I had framed him. But the honeypot trap Ben had set recorded the digital fingerprint of every operation by the intruders, irrefutable evidence. Mr. Wong was the first to stand up, slamming the table. David Lee, you disappoint me too much. To eliminate dissent, you resorted to such despicable methods. The other directors quickly defected, leveling accusations and criticisms at David and Sarah. Finally, the board unanimously passed a resolution, immediately suspending David Lee's CEO and director positions and Sarah Lee's executive director position, forming an internal investigation team to thoroughly look into the matter. Watching them being escorted out of the conference room like two stray dogs, my heart remained unmoved. This was just the appetizer. What I wanted was for them to turn on each other. I found Mr. Wong and instructed him to do something. Mr. Wong, help me leak some information. Leak the story that I'm sentimental, and as long as Sarah is willing to step up and testify that David was the mastermind, I can give her a sum of money out of respect for our 3 years together, letting her leave the city with some dignity. Mr. Wong immediately understood, revealing an old fox's smile. Brilliant. Mr. Stone, that's brilliant. This news swept like a breeze, landing precisely in the ears of the already suspicious and volatile David. Sarah, suspended and publicly condemned, was on the verge of collapse. She knew she was finished. She started calling and texting me frantically, but I ignored everything. I wanted her to struggle in despair, to make her believe that grabbing this lifeline I offered was her only way out. She began secretly contacting Mr. Wong, trying to negotiate a truce with me. All of this was reported word for word by an informant David had placed next to her. In a luxury condo they rented, an unprecedented, violent argument erupted. Are you trying to betray me? David grabbed Sarah by the hair and threw her onto the sofa, screaming with a ferocious look on his face. Are you trying to beg Ethan Stone for mercy and sell me out alone? Sarah, dazed for being thrown, cried and screamed. It's your own fault. You fell into his trap. We're both ruined now. What's wrong with me looking out for myself? A way out? Is your way out climbing over my corpse? Sarah, I'm telling you, We're in this boat together. If the boat sinks, neither of us leaves alive. Screw you. Who's in the same boat as you? If you hadn't been so greedy, how would we have ended up here? You cheap tramp. Didn't you only stick with me back then because you wanted my money and status? Now that you see I'm failing, you want to run? They clawed at each other, cursing, using the most vicious words they could think of against one another. And all of it was recorded perfectly by a miniature eavesdropping device Ben had preemptively installed in their apartment. I took segments of this half-hour recording, filled with unbearable screaming and tearing sounds, and anonymously sent them to several major gossip blogs known for breaking stories about wealthy society scandals. Exclusive audio. Multi-billion-dollar dream shattered. Former model couple turns viciously against each other, exposing dirt. As soon as the headline dropped, the internet erupted again. The conversation between David and Sarah in the recording exposed their greed, selfishness, and malice to the fullest. When David heard his own roaring voice on the news, he completely lost his sanity. He was convinced Sarah had leaked everything to show her loyalty to Ethan Stone. He stormed into the bedroom and started punching and kicking Sarah, who was packing her things. Neighbors called the police, and when the officers arrived, the two were still wrestling. The scene was extremely unsightly. I sat in my suite, looking at the on-site photos Ben sent me. In the photos, Sarah was disheveled, blood trickling from the corner of her mouth. David was being pinned to the floor by two officers, still roaring maniacally. What a loving drama. In my past life, they kissed over my cold corpse. In this life, I made them tear each other apart like rabid dogs in front of the whole world. This felt good. David and Sarah's infighting scandal became the final straw that broke the camel's back. Singularity Tech's stock price had already plummeted disastrously in pre-market trading. All investors had lost faith in the company's future. It was time to take back everything that belonged to me. I joined forces with Mr. Wong and several other directors I had already privately convinced, officially proposing an extraordinary general shareholders meeting. The agenda: remove David Lee and re-elect the CEO. I was thoroughly prepared for the shareholders meeting day. I formally submitted the complete development plan for Singularity OS 0 to all shareholders, along with a detailed, astonishing projected revenue report, endorsed by a third-party authority. The report predicted that once version 2.0 was successfully launched, Singularity Tech's market capitalization would at least quintuple from its current level. This was a massive temptation that no shareholder could resist. In the meeting, I stood center stage, the spotlight focused entirely on me. Everyone who would decide the company's fate sat below. David could only participate remotely via video conference because he was under police investigation for domestic battery. On the screen, his face was haggard, his eyes bloodshot and filled with malice. Mr. Wong spoke first. His voice was stern and severe, denouncing David for prioritizing personal gain, fabricating evidence, and framing the company founder, causing severe damage to the company's reputation and stock price, nearly destroying its future. A CEO like this is a disgrace to Singularity Tech, a nightmare for all shareholders. Next, I delivered my speech. I didn't attack David. It was unnecessary. I calmly and confidently painted a grand picture of the future of Singularity OS 0 for everyone. Gentlemen, the disputes of the past are no longer important. What matters is the future. I promise all of you, as long as Ethan Stone is here, Singularity OS 0 will officially launch within 1 year. I will lead Singularity Tech from being an excellent domestic company to becoming a great world-class corporation. I will push the company's market capitalization to an entirely new peak. My voice was steady and powerful, filled with unquestionable confidence. This confidence stemmed from the technology and foresight I possessed in my mind, a full lifetime ahead of this world. The voting process was without suspense. I successfully removed David Lee from his CEO and all director positions with an overwhelming majority of over 90%. Furthermore, at Mr. Wong's proposal, and with the support of all shareholders, I was reappointed as chairman and CEO of Singularity Tech. The moment the result was announced, David stared at me intensely on the video screen. The CEO seat, which he had snatched through leveraging all his assets and using despicable tactics, had just evaporated before my eyes. His throat bobbed. He seemed to want to say something. The next second, with a thwack, a mouthful of blood suddenly sprayed on a camera lens. The entire screen was instantly dyed a blood red. Then, the screen went black, and the connection was severed. Facing the dark screen, I said calmly, "Game over, David Lee. What's mine, I will take back piece by piece with my own hands." As for Sarah, The company's legal department immediately issued a termination notice, and my legal team would file a lawsuit against her for participating in the fabrication of evidence and commercial defamation. After the shareholders' meeting, I officially moved into the top-floor CEO office. This had been my office before David seized it, and it was filled with his gaudy and vulgar personal belongings. The first thing I did was summon the administrative manager. Throw out everything in here that doesn't belong to me. Not a single item. Yes, Mr. Stone. Half an hour later, David's expensive cigars, limited edition sneakers, and intimate photos with Sarah were all packed into trash bags and dumped into the company's central waste transfer station. I stood by the huge floor-to-ceiling window, looking down at the city below. A year ago, I stood here too, believing I owned the world. Today, I stood here again, but my state of mind was completely different. This time, the landscape beneath my feet was no longer false prosperity and a mirage. It was a solid fortress I had personally built, brick by brick, after shattering the old world. Ben was officially appointed as the company's new CTO. He was so moved that tears streamed down his face. Ethan, we won. I clapped him on the shoulder. No, this is just the beginning. My revenge was only halfway complete. Commercial victory was just the first step. Next, I wanted them to lose their freedom. I never believed in the platitudes about letting go of hatred is letting go of yourself. For me, cutting the weeds and digging up the roots was the only proper closure for myself. David lost the company and his reputation, but that wasn't enough. I wanted him to pay the legal price for his actions. I instructed Ben, using his new CTO access, to retrieve all financial records and server logs since the company's inception. Guided by my memories from the past life, like a player with God's eye view, I precisely located every key piece of evidence of David's fraudulent accounting, embezzlement, and asset misappropriation within a massive amount of data. A $20 million server procurement fee was transferred through a shell company to his cousin. A $50 million R&D outsourcing fee was skimmed through multiple layers, with at least half ending up in his own pocket. And there was more, various small amounts totaling nearly $100 million involved. This evidence was far more fatal and irrefutable than what I had shown Mr. Long before. The legal team worked overtime, compiling all the materials into a binder. A week later, a lawsuit was officially filed against David Lee. The charge, embezzlement. Simultaneously, we applied to the court for asset preservation. David, already on the verge of bankruptcy due to leveraged investments, was hit hard by the court's asset freeze order, the final straw. All his properties, vehicles, and bank accounts were frozen. Overnight, he went from a prospective billionaire to an indebted pauper. But that was still not enough. I wanted to leave him no chance to recover. I anonymously submitted a report to the police economic investigation department. It detailed the criminal fact from my past life, that David had hired a hacker to illegally steal the core commercial secrets of a competitor to gain an advantage. It included the dates, locations, personnel involved, and even the Bitcoin wallet address he used to pay the hacker. These were all things he had let slip inadvertently while bragging to me when drunk in my past life. At the time, I thought he was just boasting, but it turned out to be the death knell in this life. Following the clues I provided, the police quickly tracked down the hacker. They caught him red-handed. The chain of evidence was complete. Embezzlement was just a civil dispute. At worst, it meant jail time and paying compensation. But commercial espionage was a serious felony. David was immediately placed in criminal detention. When he was taken away in handcuffs from his hospital bed by the police, he finally understood. What I wanted was never just the company. I wanted him to suffer eternal damnation. As for Sarah, her life became even more miserable. The defamation lawsuit I filed kept her busy and worried. She tried to find a job, but under the dual scandals of the framing incident and the domestic battery incident, she was socially dead in the industry. No company dared hire her. She was forced to sell all her designer bags and jewelry and move out of her luxury condo into a cramped 10-square-meter rental in a rundown urban village teeming with cockroaches. She was chased by her landlord for rent daily and scrutinized by her neighbors. My informant planted near her would periodically send me photos of her miserable state. In the photos, she wore cheap bargain bin clothes, arguing with vendors over a few cents at the farmer's market, having completely lost the look of the exquisite goddess she once was. I would just glance at them, then delete them. My heart felt no stirrings. Is this what you wanted? To leave me, the naive tech geek, to pursue ultimate wealth and status? Sarah, did you get it? On a night with torrential rain, Sarah finally found an opportunity to break through the security perimeter and rushed downstairs to my company building. She had no umbrella, soaked to the bone like a drowned chicken, her hair messy against her pale face, utterly wretched. She screamed my name downstairs, crying heart-wrenchingly, drawing the attention of many passers-by. I looked down from my office window, as if watching a clumsy stage play. My assistant asked if I wanted security to drive her away. I shook my head. Let her come up. 10 minutes later, Sarah was brought into my office. The moment she saw me, she dropped her knees with a thud and crawled over to hug my trouser leg, sobbing hysterically. Adam, I was wrong. I was so wrong. It was all David who forced me. He was blinded by greed. He threatened me. I never wanted to hurt you. The person I've loved all along is you, Adam. Can you give me one more chance? Please. She cried until her tears and snot smeared all over me. I looked down at her, at that face that once haunted my dreams. Now, there was only endless disgust. I pulled the silk handkerchief from my suit pocket and slowly, deliberately wiped the part of my trouser leg she had touched. Then, in front of her, I threw the expensive silk handkerchief into the nearby trash can with disgust. That single action hurt more than any verbal abuse. Sarah's crying stopped abruptly. She looked up at me in disbelief. You want me to let you off? I finally spoke, my voice cold without a trace of warmth. She looked like she had grasped a lifeline, nodding frantically. Yes, I do. Adam, as long as you let me go, I'll do anything you ask. Good. I walked back to my desk, sat down, interlaced my fingers, and looked at her. David's trial is coming up soon. I need a witness. I said plainly, every word a cold knife, to testify that David not only wanted to steal the company, but also once plotted to make my accident permanent. Sarah's face instantly turned pale as paper. She wasn't stupid. She knew what this meant. It meant she had to step onto the witness, stand herself, and personally send David, the man she once called her lover, to the deepest pit of hell. I. Her lips trembled, unable to form a complete sentence. You have one chance. I interrupted her hesitation, my tone leaving no room for negotiation. If you betray him, I'll give you $1 million, enough for you to leave this city and never appear before me again. I will also withdraw my lawsuit. Otherwise, you can wait for the court summons and a lifetime of crushing debt. I leaned back in my chair, coldly watching her. Watching the ugliest, most selfish side of human nature reveal itself on her face. She struggled for less than a minute. A ruthless look flashed across her pale face. Fine. She ground out the word between her teeth. I agree. What she didn't know was that I had already obtained more crucial evidence through Ben from David's assistant. Records of David frequently browsing overseas black market websites to purchase a specific drug. Her testimony was actually irrelevant now. The only reason I did this was to let her experience firsthand what it felt like to be betrayed by the person she trusted most, to personally send the other person into the abyss. I wanted them to hate each other forever, unable to find peace outside and inside prison walls. Sarah, this is your final value. After I squeeze you dry, you will truly be less than roadside trash to me. On the day of the trial, I wore a meticulously tailored black suit and sat in the front row of the spectator seats. In the defendant's dock, David wore a prison uniform, his head shaved, looking emaciated, his eyes dark and vicious like a wounded beast. When he saw Sarah being led onto the witness stand by the bailiffs as a cooperating witness, he completely lost it. Sarah, you venomous woman, how dare you betray me? He jumped up from the defendant's dock, trying to rush over, but was held back tightly by two bailiffs. The courtroom descended into chaos. David glared, cursing Sarah with the most vicious language. Sarah trembled, her face bloodless with fear, but to protect herself, she went all in. She tearfully told the judge that David had discussed with her more than once how, after the company's IPO, he would ensure the largest technical shareholder, me, would disappear without a trace in an accident. He said Adam was too soft in character, a permanent hidden danger, and it would be better to stage an accident. He even researched many methods, such as putting something in his favorite champagne. Hearing the word champagne, the roar from David stopped dead. He whipped his head around, staring at me with terror and confusion. He couldn't figure out how I knew this secret, known only to the two of them. At this moment, my lawyer stood up and submitted a series of new pieces of evidence to the judge. Your Honor, we have evidence showing that the defendant, David Lee, frequently logged onto an overseas black market website a week before the IPO, browsing and inquiring about a specialized drug called succinylcholine. This colorless, odorless substance can rapidly cause cardiac arrest and is extremely difficult to detect during an autopsy. Simultaneously, we have the testimony of the defendant's assistant, along with related purchase receipts, proving that the defendant specifically instructed his assistant to buy a case of a specific brand of champagne that Mr. Stone particularly enjoys. We also have the chat records between the defendant and the witness, Sarah Lee, where the defendant said to her the night before the IPO, "After tomorrow, no one will be able to stop us anymore." These pieces of evidence, viewed individually, might not prove anything directly, but when linked together, coupled with Sarah's testimony, they formed a complete and clear chain of murderous motive and preparatory action. There was an uproar in the courtroom. David Lee was speechless, slumping onto his chair as if all his strength had been drained. He just stared fixedly at me, his eyes filled with not just hatred, but a ghostly terror. He didn't understand how I knew all his secrets, all his darkest thoughts. I met his gaze, the corner of my mouth curving slightly into a cold smile. Then, I raised my hand and silently formed a word shape toward him. Surprise? These 3 words were the final straw that completely crushed David Lee's psychological defense. He suddenly sprang up, pointing at me like a madman, roaring in the courtroom. "It's you. It's you. You are a devil. A devil crawled back from hell." The bailiffs forcefully restrained him again, silencing him. The final verdict was no surprise. David Lee was convicted on multiple counts including embezzlement, commercial espionage, and instigating defamation, sentenced to 15 years in prison, ordered to forfeit all his illegal gains, and fined $30 million. His life was definitively over. As for Sarah, although she avoided criminal charges due to her significant meritorious service, she was still recorded in the court as having committed perjury and participating in defamation, burdened with a stain that could never be washed away. When she walked out of the courthouse, she looked completely soul-drained. I brushed past her without a glance. Our feud ended here. Your life, too, ended here. After David was imprisoned, his parents came to the company and caused a massive scene. The 2 unreasonable elderly people lay on the floor of the lobby, throwing tantrums, screaming that I was an ungrateful wretch, an animal, for ruining their son. I didn't waste any words on them. I had security escort them out. Before they left, I had my assistant stuff a copy of David's sentencing document into their hands. "If you want to know what your son did, read it yourself." After that, they never came back. Sarah received the $1 million check from my lawyer. She fled the city that had ruined her reputation, going to a place where no one knew her. She thought she could start over, but she was too naive. She was accustomed to a life of extravagance. $1 million was nothing to her. She tried to invest the money in a small business, but was cheated out of most of it due to poor judgment in people. She tried to find another rich man to be her sugar daddy based on her looks. But in this digital age, her little notorious deeds had already spread everywhere. Those men only treated her as a plaything. They discarded her as soon as they got tired of her. No one dared to truly marry her. The $1 million quickly dwindled. She fell from being a VIP at luxury boutiques to walking miles to save a few dollars on a bus fare. That massive drop from the clouds into the mire was 1,000 times more painful than starting in the mire in the first place. One night, I received a call from her. Her voice was hoarse and filled with despair. "Ethan Stone, why? Why are you so ruthless? We loved each other once. Why can't you just let me go?" Listening to her hysterical cries on the other end, I only found it incredibly noisy. "You ask me why I'm so ruthless?" I paused, my voice calm and cold. "You might as well ask the me who fell from a 100-meter building and was shattered to pieces. Ask him if he thinks I was ruthless." With that, I hung up directly and blocked her number. From then on, this woman completely disappeared from my life. 1 year later, Ben casually mentioned in a chat that he saw Sarah's name in a piece of social news. She was being investigated by the police as an accessory in an illegal fundraising scheme and was likely facing prison time. I heard the news without any reaction. "Oh, got it." To me, she was no different from a rock on the roadside. I poured all my energy into the development of Singularity OS 0. Under my leadership, the company purged all the abscesses and parasites, radiating unprecedented vitality and energy. Everyone was driven by a singular desire to strive for that shared, great goal. No one cared about the gossip and scandals of the past anymore. At Singularity Tech, technology and product were the only passes. I stood in the brand new office, looking out the window at the clear, bright sky. The vengeful spirits of my past life had been buried by my own hands. My revenge in this life had also reached its conclusion. It was time to walk the path ahead. The internal beta demo of Singularity OS 0, once released, caused a huge sensation in the entire tech and capital circles. Its revolutionary interaction logic, unparalleled operating efficiency, and forward-looking layout for the future smart ecosystem showed everyone a potential future capable of challenging the dominance of Android and iOS. Countless investment firms flocked to our doorstep, almost breaking down the gates of Singularity Tech. Among them was the top international VC firm, Blackstone Capital. The person in charge of this project was Lina Qin, the investment director for Greater China at Blackstone Capital, an industry queen renowned for her sharp eye, ruthless tactics, and aggressive negotiation style. During the first negotiation, the atmosphere in the conference room was thick with gunpowder. Director Qin, dressed in a perfectly tailored black suit, exuded a powerful presence, and the terms she proposed were extremely harsh, demanding not only a 30% stake, but also control over the company's future direction, with the right to appoint several executives. Mr. Stone, Blackstone invests not just money, but resources and management expertise. We want Singularity Tech to walk a more correct path. Her words were diplomatic, but the meaning was clear. Your technology is brilliant, but your management is lacking. You need to listen to us. The other executives in the company, including Mr. Wang, felt slightly suffocated by her aura. But I just smiled. I waited for her to finish, then slowly picked up her 50-page investment proposal. Director Qin, the proposal is excellent, very correct. However, I shifted gears, my gaze sharpening. Your proposal has 3 fatal flaws. In front of her, I pointed out 3 major errors in her market forecasting, technology path selection, and competitive strategy. Each one hit the nail on the head, pinpointing blind spots her team hadn't considered. You're betting on holographic interaction, which won't mature for another 5 years, while ignoring that the Internet of Everything will be the biggest trend in the next 3 years. Your suggestion that we abandon compatibility with the existing Android application ecosystem is suicidal. You only see Apple and Google, but you fail to see that our real enemy is user inertia. My words left the entire conference room in stunned silence. The perfectly professional smile on Lina Qin's face showed surprise for the first time. Her team behind her began whispering to each other, their faces filled with shock, because every word I spoke precisely predicted the technological trajectory of the next few years. That confidence and insight did not belong to a 28-year-old. It sounded more like a prophet who had crossed the barriers of time. Lina Qin was being refuted so bluntly for the first time. Far from getting angry, the way she looked at me lit up. It was the excitement and appreciation of facing a worthy opponent. That negotiation naturally ended unpleasantly. But over the next week, we engaged in several rounds of intense business battles. From debates over the technical roadmap to the tug-of-war over equity valuation and discussions on corporate governance structure, every round was a brilliant intellectual confrontation. Finally, we reached a cooperative agreement that satisfied both parties. Blackstone Capital invested $5 billion, taking a 15% stake, and agreed not to interfere with the company's daily operations, retaining only a board seat and a single veto right. It was a win-win outcome. After the signing ceremony, Lina Qin stayed behind alone. Holding a glass of champagne, she approached me, observing me with curiosity. I'm very curious, Ethan Stone. You have a ruthlessness and sophistication that doesn't belong to your age. You don't seem like a pure tech geek at all. She paused, her red lips parting slightly. What exactly have you been through? I smiled, swirling the liquid in my glass, watching the golden bubbles rise. Nothing much. I just fell from a very, very high place once. So now I walk a bit steadier. Lina Qin was momentarily stunned. Then she smiled too. She raised her glass to me. To you. We exchanged knowing smiles, both seeing the appreciation and chemistry in the other's eyes. New capital, new blood, new allies. The aircraft carrier that was Singularity Tech was finally assembled. This time, what we would conquer was the stars and the sea. 1 year later, Singularity Tech's development surpassed even the most optimistic expectations. Once the official version of Singularity OS 0 was released, it swept through the entire smartphone market with irresistible force, capturing 30% of the domestic market share within 6 months and successfully going global, causing a huge stir in European and American markets as well. The company's market capitalization had multiplied tenfold in just 1 year. We relaunched the IPO. This time, I stood once again on the familiar bell-ringing stage of the New York Stock Exchange. Below, the magnesium flashes still flickered relentlessly, and the focus of the entire world was still on me. But my state of mind was completely different. There was no tension or anxiety from the past life, only the calm and detachment of someone reigning over the world. Standing beside me were no longer vipers with hidden agendas, but my staunchest partners. Ben, with pride shining in his eyes and tears of emotion. Mr. Wong, grinning widely and full of trust in me. And a representative of our most crucial investor, the stunningly beautiful Lena Chin in a red dress. The countdown began. 3, 2, 1. I picked up the heavy bell hammer, my gaze firm, looking straight ahead. At 0 hour, I swung down with force, ringing the bronze bell before me. Clang! The bell chime was clear and resonant, echoing throughout the entire trading floor and seemingly throughout my entire soul. The dream I had failed to achieve in my past life, the regret tainted by betrayal and blood, was completely washed clean and perfectly realized in this moment. On the giant screen behind me, the stock code for Singularity Tech, Chidian, opened with an instant surge, the increase rate instantly breaking 100%. The entire venue erupted in thunderous applause and cheers. I delivered my listing speech. I thanked everyone who had supported me in times of crisis and every loyal employee of the company. At the end of the speech, I said, "Great innovation requires a pure environment. We cleared out all the parasites simply to allow this great tree to grow into the towering form it was always meant to be." I alluded to everything that had happened in the past, drawing a conclusion. At the celebration party, I held a glass of champagne, watching the golden bubbles rise in the liquid. This time, they contained only the sweetness of victory and the joy of a new beginning. Lena Chin walked up beside me, holding a glass as well, and gently tapped mine. Her eyes were bright, carrying a knowing smile that seemed to penetrate everything. "To rebirth," she said with just those 3 words. I was momentarily taken aback, then smiled with understanding. Perhaps she had guessed something, but that no longer mattered. What mattered was that I had truly been reborn. I downed the champagne in one gulp. Outside the window was the dazzling night view of New York City. I knew that my story, the one that truly belonged to me, had just begun. This time, I would stand at the apex of the world, personally ushering in an era that truly belonged to me.